Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Lily Reads. Okay, so this is the mid-year freakout tag. Everyone on booktube pretty much takes place in the everyone on booktube pretty much takes part in the mid-year freakout tag. Basically, this is where in the middle of the year, which actually starts in July, you talk about all of the books that you have read this past 6 months. And yeah, you go over some of the questions. So let's start off by talking about my reading year. I cannot believe we are already 6 months done with the year, but overall, my reading year has been fine. I wouldn't say it was bad. I believe last year in my mid-year freakout tag, I literally said I was having a terrible reading year. I am not having a terrible reading year. There are so few books that I have disliked this year, and that is not like me. Y'all know I love to dislike stuff. That's the type of personality I have. Either I like something or I don't like something. Rarely am I middle of the way about anything. Every opinion I have is a strong opinion. But I don't have very many things that I've disliked this year, so I can't say that my reading year has been bad because that just would not be true. I have not read many bad books, and the books that I have not given good reviews to, most of them I truly believe have an audience, and I am just not that audience. I don't think I really have a book except maybe one or two that is just oh, this is awful. Now, with that being said, the reason why I say my reading year has just been fine and not excellent, even though I just said I rarely have any books that I've disliked, is I also don't have any books that I am deeply passionate about. I have handed out a few 5 stars this year, and of course I gave them 5 stars because I like them, but a lot of the 5 stars I handed out is because I know that this book did everything right. I enjoyed this book, but I don't have a deep fascination with the book. I don't have a deep desire to recommend the books to people. I don't have a deep desire to reread the books, and I'm just not really all that passionate about many of the books that I gave 5 stars. They just did the job, they did the job. They did what they were supposed to do, and I'm good with that. And so they got 5 stars. So I think, and maybe I'm wrong about this because I would have to really think about how my reading year was last year, but I would like to say that I would read 20 duds if I could get 2 books that just really excite me. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think I've gotten that, and it just makes me upset. It just makes me upset because I am just waiting. Every single book that I read, I am just waiting to have that book that makes me so passionate, where all the way through I just had a good time, and this is what reading is made of, and that's not what I'm having. Now, I will say I am feeling good about what I read this year. I had a goal for myself. I am trying to eat through my bookshelf. I am not interested in new releases. I haven't even paid attention to many of the new releases. I have not been someone who has been in and out of the bookstore like I was last year. I am trying to read the books that I own. I purchased these books for a reason, and that is to read them. So 9 times out of 10, let's say I read 10 books in a month, 7 of them are going to be books that I have owned for quite a while. That is just what I'm trying to do. And I think I'm going to take this even further into next year to actually literally own. My goal in life is maybe to have 50 unread books. That's what I personally would like on my bookshelf. 50 to 60 unread books, maybe 100 unread books, and then everything else on my bookshelves will be books that I read, already know what they're about. And that sounds crazy, but you guys, I own over 500 books. So having 100 unread books is actually nothing. That's nothing. I can read 100 books in a year. So that's just 1 year of just not buying any books and just reading. So I think that is what I want. So I am happy with the books that I read. And I think because I'm reading books that I own, that's why I've been having just a fine reading year, because I bought these books for a reason. I bought these books with the idea that I was going to like them. I read the synopsis and I was like, I'm going to like this book. And though that's why I've been liking these books. But The problem with that is sometimes in order to love something, you kind of got to take a risk. You got to buy that new release. You got to buy that book without reading the synopsis. You know, you got to kind of branch out. And a lot of these books appeal to maybe an older taste of mine, or maybe I went through a phase where like I really liked a certain type of book, and so I purchased a certain type of book, and now I'm not really in that phase anymore. To think about that, like I went through a phase where I really loved adult romance, adult contemporary romance. I really, really enjoyed. I am not in that era anymore. It's really hard for me to want to read an adult contemporary romance. I'm just not interested in that anymore. Also, like my smutty era is gone, and it's so crazy. I was in that era for about 2-3 years. Now I'm out of that era and I want to read different types of stories, and so it's really hard for me to want to pick up books that are like that, because that's just not what I'm interested in anymore. So I think going back and reading older books or reading books that I have owned, sometimes I can agree that this is a good book, but I think the love, like that 5-star, this is amazing, would just come at a different point in my life. Like if I read this when I purchased it a year ago or 2 years ago, I would like it a whole lot more. You know what? You get what I'm saying? I just think when your taste starts evolving, that's when you kind of lose some of the magic of, you know, certain books that you purchase. And that's why I'm going to continue this reading books that I own for the rest of the year and into 2024, because I want to just start collecting books now that are with my taste. I think I'm better at book buying now, if that makes sense. I went through a phase where I was just like, oh, this person who I likes this book, I should like this book too. But now I understand that most of the booktubers who I watch and enjoy, we do not have the same taste. I have a very particular taste, and I don't have the same taste as people, but I can still enjoy their content. I no longer feel this pressure to read the newest book, to have the newest book, to be reading what everyone else is reading, you know? Like every now and then there's that book, The Four Winds or something, The Four something, and everybody and their mama has read that book or is going to read that book or has hauled that book. And it's just like, that ain't my speed. Like sometimes I get a feeling like I should go pick it up. I see it all the time. Every time I walk by books, I'm like, maybe I should know. Like, it's just not for me. It's just not for me, and that's fine. So let's get into it. So I separated my books into the month that I read them. So you have January, February, March. I don't know what the fuck happened in March. And then kind of in February too. And April too. And then you go over here. You have January, February, March, April. You have May. And then you have June. And then right here you have my DNFs. And then you have the book club. So let me start by telling you all the books that I have DNF'd this year. I have only DNF'd 4 books. And like I said, I've enjoyed most of the books that I've read. It's not like I'm not DNFing books. I have no problem DNFing books. It's just that I have enjoyed most of the books that I've read. Like most of them have not even been on DNF alert. So I DNF The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This book was just not for me. This goes back to I just don't have the taste of other people. This book is not for me, not gonna be for me. I'm okay with DNFing. Never thought about revisiting. The only reason why I would revisit this book is because I do feel like I'm missing out on something. Hellbent, the sequel to this book, did come out this year, and you know, everybody and their mama was reading it, so I did feel like I was missing out on something. But if I'm not enjoying a book, there's just no reason for me to keep on reading it. So I did DNF The Ninth House. Now, the book that I have constantly thought about going back to, I still have my bookmark in it. Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. I DNF'd this book at about the halfway point. I just found the romance to be absolutely ridiculous. I found the characters to be absolutely ridiculous, and they didn't have much of nothing going on. It's just, I could finish this book in the next hour. I could literally sit on my couch and read this book within an hour and be able to say I read it, you know? But and you gotta learn when to let stuff go. I think you gotta learn when to let stuff go. I could also read another book on my bookshelf for an hour that I would actually like. I gave time to this book. I did not enjoy it, so I DNF'd it, and you know, it will be leaving my library at the end of the year. The next thing is Lucy Folly. I thought about making a video of all the authors I'm never going to read from again. And if I do decide to make that video, or if I don't, just know Lucy Folly, she would be on that list. I have no desire to read any more books from this author, but you have The Paris Apartment. I found this book to be completely boring. Every now and then, I am intrigued about where the hell to do from this book is at. I'm intrigued sometimes on the plot twist, but that's just me being nosy. But what was supposed to get us there, like, whoa, this book was just so damn boring. But I thought the guest list was boring too. I just don't think me and this author really see each other. I find their writing to just be very snoozy, just boring. I don't know. So I will not be picking up any more Lucy Foley books, and I'm happy I know that now. Like, that's what I mean by, like, the more you read from the books that you have, you realize, okay, like, whenever this author comes out with anything new, I can skip it. There are so many authors now that, like, I know that I can skip. For example, Riley Sager. Riley Sager just came out with a book, and it's getting pretty good reviews. Riley Sager has done me wrong one too many times. So guess what? I'm going to check it out from the library. And you know what? Whenever the library, I get my turn at it from the library, that is when I will read it. But I don't have to rush to get the new thing. I don't need to get the new thing. Another thing, Taylor Adams. The Last Word just came out by Taylor Adams. I deeply want to read that. But you want to know what? When I read No Exit by Taylor Adams, there were some N-word drops that offended me. So guess what? Taylor Adams, I'm gonna wait till the library got you, and that's when I will pick you up, So I think the more you read through the books that you own, you figure out your taste, you figure out who you want to buy, who you want to spend your money on, and you ignore everything else. And the last thing goes to Ali Hazelwood. Like I said, if I made a video on the authors I will never be reading from again, Ali Hazelwood would be on that list. Me and Ali Hazelwood don't get each other. I know that there are people who enjoy Ali Hazelwood novels, and I think those people should enjoy Ali Hazelwood novels. That is just not me. I was about to say I don't deeply respect. That's not nice. I don't care for that type of literature. I don't care for this type of romance. I don't care. Like, this does nothing for me. That's the perfect thing to say about this type of romance. The love hypothesis, Ali Hazelwood's way of writing doesn't do anything for me. But there's stuff that I like that does nothing for you guys. You guys have to always understand, every opinion of mine, you have to remember that I enjoy domestic thrillers. Nobody enjoys domestic thrillers. I enjoy domestic thrillers. So we all have things that everyone thinks sucks that you enjoy. I think this type of romance, not so great, but I enjoy domestic thrillers. So, like, who am I? You just gotta take it with a grain of salt, okay? So anyways, those are the books that I DNF. Never thought about going back to Love on a Brain. I do not care. So let's get into faves, least faves, okay? So let's go into the book club. We have obviously read 6 books from the Lily Reads book club. Let me tell it, I have one of the best book clubs going on. I don't know what to tell you. I love my book club. I know I need a co-host. I just am so busy. I do so many things on the internet. I don't even realize how much stuff I do on the internet. I run As Told by Kenya. I come over here and I run a Patreon and I have a book club. Like, there are 4 places that need my attention, and it can be so exhausting. So I just haven't had time to figure out what I want to do about a co-host. I do have an idea for a co-host that I want, and I need to reach out to him because I deeply want him to be a co-host, but it's just taking time, And so I'm just not going to rush it too much. I'm having a lot of fun. The people who show up to the book club, we all just have a good time, and I enjoy talking about books, and it's really therapeutic for me. It's the most exciting part of my month. I'm going to be honest with you. I just love talking about books and being in the chat with you guys. But we read 6 books, and I think my favorite book of these 6 would be Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This was a 5-star prediction, and boy, did it not let me down. I believe Talia Hibbert should continue to write YA. I think that's where Talia Hibbert thrives. This book is absolutely amazing. I don't care what anyone says. I think my least favorite book of all the books that we read this year was The Neighbor Favor, and that's just because I think my hopes were up really, really high. This is a 3-star book for me, but my hopes were just really high, and then they got crushed after the first 65 pages, and so that would be my least favorite. But the fact that that's my least favorite says how much I enjoyed this book. My probably most surprising book that I enjoyed was Whiteout. I enjoyed Whiteout, which was a short story collection. Yeah, that would be the book club picks. Okay, next we have so starting off, we have January. These are the books that I read in January. My favorite book that I read in January was When We Were Bright and Beautiful. More people need to pick this book up. That's all I can say about this book. I absolutely adored this book. I gave this book 5 stars. I can't wait to reread this book in the future. And my least favorite book that I read in January would be the Megan Miranda collection. If you remember my Megan Miranda video, The Girl from Widow Hills was not good, and then The Last House Guest was really not good. I could push this book up to a 2-star if I'm being nice. This stays at a 1. So that is what I read in January. And then we had Black History Month, which I read a lot of books, and I'm going to be honest with you, I enjoyed most of them. It's actually sad that I have to choose like a worse book, because even though I'm going to tell you my least favorite book, it's nowhere near my least favorite book of the year. So my favorite book would go to Amari and the Night Brothers. And then my least favorite book would go to A Love-Hate Thing. But I gave this book 3 stars. It's perfectly fine. But that was just how good of a reading month I had. Remember when I did the Tiffany D. Jackson video, I gave Blackout 4.5 stars. I gave Allegedly 4.75 stars. Have We Met was so good. 16 and Pregnant was so good. Like, so many books that I enjoyed. So then we get to March. In March, I read a bunch of books that I enjoyed, but my favorite book would go to Toni Morrison with Recitative. Absolutely amazing. If you have not read this short story, please go do it. And then my least favorite book would be Magpie. This was a domestic thriller that was just god-awful. Just god-awful. No redeeming qualities. Okay, let's move on to April. In April, we have my favorite book being From the Desk of Zoe Washington, and my least favorite book being Legends and Lattes. I'm sorry, Legends and Latte girls. I was bored. I don't know what to tell you. I do not like that book. So then we have, what we in January, March, April, May. We have May. I got back on my reading kick clearly. My favorite book in May would be How Beautiful We Were. This book needs more attention. This book is so goddamn good. And then my least favorite book would be The Writing Retreat. There's nothing you can say about The Writing Retreat. This book is not good. I don't know. You have some people who really like this book and they be trying to sell. This book is not good. This book is simply just not good. It's not a well-written book. It's not an interesting book. Like, no. Be serious. Those would be my favorite and least favorites. And then we have just recently what we left, which is June. My favorite books in June being We Deserve Monuments and No Filter and Other Lies. The YA girlies really came through with this. The YA queer girlies really came through with these. I really enjoyed these books. You should get your hands on them. And then my least favorite book would just be A Little Hope. Just wasn't for me. This is not a bad book. Just simply not for me. Just a little bit of a snooze. So if you deeply wanted to know what my favorite and least favorite books are, those were those, okay? So now we have to get into some of the questions. I won't tell you what my favorite books has been so far this year. If you know me, you can decide down in the comments what you think my favorite and least favorite were. But just know that's pretty much, those are the books that's in the running to be in like my top 10 favorite books of the year. Maybe they all will make it. Who knows? Okay, so let's get into some of the questions. I wrote down, I think, some of the questions and everything. So first we have best sequel. Best sequel would go to On Air with Zoe Washington. I read From the Desk of Zoe Washington, loved it. Picked up the sequel. The sequel was just as good, from the On Air with Zoe Washington is the best sequel I read this year. Let's move on. New release that I have not read yet that I need to. Happy Place. I gotta read Happy Place. You guys know I am an Emily Henry stan. Even the Emily Henry books I don't like, I like. Happy Place. I have not read Happy Place. I need to get my hands on, well, I already have my hands on Happy Place, and I know when I'm going to read Happy Place. Spoiler alert, I'm reading Happy Place next week. I'm reading Happy Place next week, okay? So all you people who have been asking, it is finally coming. I'm reading Happy Place. But yeah, I need to read Happy Place. You know I need to read Happy Place. We got to get Happy Place done. The next one is anticipated new releases. That is so easy. You have Play to Win, which I literally have pre-ordered. I cannot wait to get my hands on that. I believe that is a black romance, so it might make its way into the book club next year. I do not know anticipated release, but my most anticipated release of the year goes to My Week with Him by Joya Goffney. This is from the author who has brought us Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry and Confessions of an Alleged Good Girl. We have this book, and I am oh so excited. Let's move on to biggest disappointment. My biggest disappointments of the year come in the exact same month. I have Wrong Place, Wrong Time and Babel. Babel, I still gave 3.5 stars, so it's not like I deeply disliked it. Wrong Place, Wrong Time, I gave 2 stars. I did dislike it. I have heard so many good things about both of these books. And even if I didn't get them, like they weren't like all-time favorite reads, I thought I would still like really like them, and that's just not the case, especially in Wrong Place, Wrong Time. And I can understand Babel. I really don't usually read books like Babel, so it may, and this is my first R.F. Kuang. I have not read the Poppy Awards and will not be reading the Poppy Awards. So like I didn't know what I was getting to in this book, so that's fine. But with Wrong Place, Wrong Time, I actually thought I was going to like this book. This book is a thriller. It is a mystery, and like that's my thing, you know? You're following an older woman. Older women are my favorite, like my favorite subjects in thrillers. I love when you're following an older woman and she's trying to figure something. I love that. That's literally my thing. Like give me a 40, 50-year-old, even 60-year-old woman like trying to figure something out in her life. I always love that, but this just didn't work for me. I found it to be boring, so most disappointing goes to that. Let's move on to the next question. Biggest surprise. Biggest surprise goes to 16 and Pregnant and Someone Else's Shoes. I purchased this book from Target because I read the synopsis and said this is kind of up my alley. It's chiclety. I love chiclet, sorry. And then I purchased 16 and Pregnant because last year I was doing my rounds. I like to look up what Black authors are putting out. I just always like to support Black authors. So at the end of the year, every year, I like to look up like what's on the slate. What are some Black authors going to be putting out? And I saw that this book was going to release, and I pre-ordered it. And so like I was just hoping for the best. I was just like, what's the worst that can happen? Baby, both of these books I absolutely love. Both of these books will show up in some end of the year list that I do. These are my biggest surprise. 16 and Pregnant deserves more. People need to read this book. This book is really good, and this book is getting the credit it deserves, but like with this ugly ass cover, I just didn't think much of it, but this book was really interesting. It kept me in it the entire time. I did not expect this book to be about what it's about, and so these would be my biggest surprises. I enjoyed those books. Let's move on. My newest favorite author. I don't think I have a newest favorite author of all time. You want to know something about me? I don't have favorite authors. A lot of people can just list off authors that are like their favorite authors of all time. I don't have that. Maybe this is like the Scorpio in me. Maybe it's the trust issues in me. I'm a firm believer that any and everybody can let me down. Any and everybody can let me down. I feel like having a favorite author is just setting yourself up to like be let down. Like are the odds that an author is going to always impress you? Like they're always going to switch it up. For example, me being excited about Joya Goffney's next books. I have loved Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry and Confessions of an Alleged Good Girl. But if I sit here and just get so excited for My Week with Him, and I'm just like, Joya Goffney is my favorite author, one of my favorite authors of all time, like, I'm gonna be let down. Like, what if the book is bad? I just feel like you're putting too much on the author to always be able to deliver. I take what I can get from an author. I meet them where they're at. So, like, yes, I have like 2 books from them in the past, but I could also give another book that gave 1 star, and that's fine. That doesn't take away from the fact that I enjoyed something that they did in the past, if that makes sense. There's authors who have written some of my favorite books of all time, and I do not like anything else they've done. I literally am like, ooh, like for example, Toni Morrison, Restless to Tea. I do not love all of Toni Morrison's book. That might be an unpopular opinion. I don't love all of Toni Morrison's book. So like, but does that change the fact that Restless to Tea is one of my favorite books? Like, I think one of my favorite short stories of all time? Like, no, like, I don't know. I don't have favorite authors. I meet people where they're at. Some stuff is going to be for me. Some stuff is not. So I do not have a favorite author. But I have to give 10s to Lisa Allen Augustini, because she is the only author who I've given 2 5-stars to. Home and The Bread the Devil Need. I read both of their books this year and gave both of them 5 stars. So honestly, this would probably be the author who I would be most like, ooh, I will say that whatever this author puts out, I'm going to get my hands on. That is what I can say. Instead of having favorite authors, I have authors who, whatever they're put out, I'm going to hear them out regardless. Regardless, I'm going to hear them out. And that is Lisa Allen Augustini, because 2 5-stars in the same month, back to back, like, that's a hard feat, but they did that. Let's move on. Book that made me cry. I rarely cry in books. That when I read books, it's just never that serious. It's never that serious. But every now and then, a book will like do something, and it's not that the book is making me cry. It's whatever the book is reminding me of, or whatever like thought I have when I'm reading the book, that makes me cry. And let's hear a rhyme. For some reason, this book made me cry. I read the first, like, I think 100 pages of this book, and then I went to go do the dishes, and I was, like, doing the dishes, and I was thinking about this book, about how these little black kids, they lost one of their best friends, and they were going the extra mile, and they were going to any length in order to keep their friend's memory alive, and, like, have their friend live on beyond the years that they lived. And that just made me really, really emotional, because it just made me think about all the people who get left behind. Like, you keep moving on with your life, but you lose people along the way, and like, they don't get to move with you. They don't get to grow with you. And like, this idea of keeping people alive, and like, even in death, allowing people to evolve. It just got me really, really emotional for some damn reason. And so I started crying. I was doing the dishes and I started crying. I'm just like, that's so sweet. Like, it's so pure. So Let's Hear a Rhyme is actually a book that made me cry. And I don't even know why. Like, just being emotional for no damn reason. I have this like thing where like, I won't have no emotion. For like 4 months, Ken won't show a bit of emotion. Then boom, all of a sudden, here come the waterworks. Book that made you happy. A book that made me happy is Whiteout. I did not expect Whiteout to make me as happy as they did. Every single story except for one, I was kicking my feet up and I was giggling. Whiteout is probably the book that has made me the most happy while I was reading it. Just hearing about these little black kids falling in love with each other during a snowstorm. Boy, did I love it. Boy, did I love it. Is that the last question? Books I need to read by the end of the year. All of them. All of them. I literally the other day, took all the books off my bookshelf that I want to read by the end of the year. Like, I'm telling myself I have to get to them. So all them, I want to do a Ruth Ware video if you care. I want to read Bad Fruit. I want to read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I want to do a Tessa Bailey video. I want to read some thrillers from last year that I didn't get to. I want to read some discount thrillers that I've been purchasing. Like, I have so many books, like all of them. I need to read all of them. All of them I need to get to. And that's it. That's the mid-year freakout tag. I don't have anything else to say. Tell me how your reading year has been going, and I'll see you guys in the next one.